The moment that changed everything. Ethan was about to die. There, in the dirty bathroom of a decaying bar, with a syringe in his hand and his heart racing, he realized he had hit rock bottom. At 25, he was no longer the dream-filled boy he once imagined he would become. Drugs had taken everything: his family, his dignity, his will to live. But that night, something happened. Something he still can't explain to this day. A miracle? Divine intervention? Or simply the instinct to survive screaming louder than the addiction? Whatever it was, that was the night Ethan decided he wouldn't die there. And what came next was a journey as painful as it was inspiring. A story of rebirth that proves even when all seems lost, there is still hope. Ethan grew up in a modest neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but problems were abundant. The son of divorced parents, he found refuge on the streets that he didn't have at home. At 15, his first encounter with drugs was almost an accident, an offer from a friend at a party, a promise of temporary escape from the pain. At the time, he had no idea that this impulsive choice would shape the next 10 years of his life. At first, it was just fun. A joint here, a drink there, but soon, the addiction began to take its toll. Ethan dropped out of school, lost his job, and drifted away from his family. Drugs became his priority, his only goal. By 20, he was already deep in a world of chemical dependency, theft, and sleepless nights. By 25, he had nowhere left to run. It was during this time that he hit rock bottom, broke, friendless, and hopeless. Ethan slept on park benches and scavenged for food in the trash. His family, tired of trying to help him, had cut all ties. He was alone, trapped in an endless cycle of self-destruction. But as he says today, sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. The night everything changed started like any other. Ethan was at a bar, trying to scrape together money for his next fix. He no longer cared what he had to do to get what he wanted. Lie, steal, betray. The addiction had erased any trace of morality. That's when he ran into a familiar dealer, who offered him a new substance. This will take you to another world, the man promised. Desperate for an escape, Ethan accepted without a second thought. Minutes later, he was in the bar's bathroom, preparing the dose. But something went wrong. Right after injecting the drug, Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest. His vision blurred, and he collapsed to the floor, unable to move. "This is how I'm going to die," he thought as darkness began to consume his mind. It was then that something inexplicable happened. Ethan isn't sure what it was. A flash of light, a voice, a sense of peace. But he swears he heard someone say, "It's not your time yet." When he woke up, he was on the bathroom floor, alone and shaking, but alive. That experience was the wake-up call he needed. For the first time in years, Ethan felt afraid of dying, and more than that, a desire to live. It was there, in that filthy bathroom, that he made the decision that would change his life forever. He would fight his addiction, no matter the cost. Topic 3. The first step toward recovery, deciding to change, was just the beginning. Ethan knew the journey ahead would be long and painful, but he was willing to face it. The day after that fateful night, he sought out a rehabilitation center. Entering the center was a shock. Ethan, used to the freedom or chaos of the streets, had to adapt to a rigid and disciplined routine. The first few weeks were the hardest. Withdrawal symptoms left him weak, irritable, and desperate. There were moments when he thought about giving up, about returning to the streets and the drugs. But whenever that temptation arose, he remembered that night in the bathroom and the promise he had made to himself. Slowly, Ethan began to see small signs of progress. He managed to sleep through the night without nightmares. He ate a full meal without feeling nauseous. He had an honest conversation with therapists without lying or hiding. These small victories, though insignificant to some, were huge to him. But the biggest challenge was yet to come. Ethan knew that to truly recover, he would have to face not just the addiction, but the traumas that had led him there. And that meant confronting his past head-on, something he wasn't sure he was ready for. Facing the demons of the past therapy was a turning point in Ethan's journey. For the first time, he began to understand the roots of his addiction, the pain of abandonment, the need for acceptance, the fear of failure. He realized that drugs had never been the real problem. They were just a way to numb the pain he had carried for years. One of the hardest moments was when he decided to reconnect with his family. Ethan hadn't seen his mother in over 5 years, and the guilt and shame consumed him. When he finally met her, he didn't know what to expect. Would she forgive him? Did she still love him? The reunion was emotional and painful. Ethan cried as he asked for forgiveness, and his mother cried as she hugged him. "I never gave up on you," she said. "I always knew you could overcome this." This reconciliation was a crucial step in Ethan's recovery. He realized that, although he had made mistakes, he was still worthy of love and forgiveness. And more importantly, he realized he wasn't alone. With the support of his family and renewed determination, Ethan began to rebuild his life. He got a simple but honest job and started attending support meetings for former addicts. Slowly, he regained confidence in himself and hope for the future. But the real turning point came when he decided to help others who were going through the same hell he had faced. Ethan began volunteering at rehabilitation centers, sharing his story and offering support to those in need. It was there that he found his purpose. Ethan realized that his pain hadn't been in vain. It had transformed him into someone stronger, more compassionate, and more determined. And he wanted to use that strength to make a difference in the lives of others. Today, Ethan is an example of resilience. He not only overcame addiction, but also turned his pain into a legacy of hope. And the question that remains is, what would you do if you had a second chance? Rebuilding Ethan's life wasn't a linear process. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth. He started setting small, achievable goals, like staying sober for a week, then a month, and so on. Every milestone reached was a victory, a reminder that he was capable of overcoming obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. One of the most significant moments during this phase was when Ethan managed to re-enter the job market. He started with simple jobs, like delivery helper and cleaning assistant, but each experience was a step toward financial and emotional independence. He learned to value the sweat of his labor, something the drugs had stolen from him for years. Additionally, Ethan began rebuilding his self-esteem. He understood that his identity wasn't defined by the mistakes of his past, but by the choices he made in the present. Slowly, he allowed himself to dream again. Simple dreams, like having a place to call home, regaining his family's trust, and perhaps one day, helping others find the same path to freedom he was walking. The power of support and community. Ethan soon realized he couldn't win this battle alone. Recovery required more than willpower. It required support. That's when he found a group of people going through similar struggles. In support meetings, he discovered he wasn't the only one carrying invisible scars. This community became a cornerstone in Ethan's life. He found not only practical advice on how to deal with withdrawal, but also a sense of belonging. For the first time in years, he felt part of something bigger than himself. It was in this environment that Ethan met Marcos, a former addict who had been sober for over a decade. Marcos became a kind of mentor to Ethan, showing him that recovery was possible and that life after addiction could be fulfilling and meaningful. Healing isn't about forgetting the past, Marcos often said. It's about learning to live with it without letting it define you. These words resonated deeply with Ethan. He began to see his own story not as a sentence, but as a powerful tool to inspire and help others. The challenge of temptation, despite his progress, Ethan's journey wasn't free of relapses. There were days when the temptation to return to drugs felt unbearable. Stressful situations at work, family conflicts, or even painful memories from the past were triggers that tested his resilience. On one such occasion, Ethan almost gave in. He was having an especially tough day, feeling overwhelmed and alone. For a moment, he thought about giving up and returning to the false comfort of drugs. But instead of giving in, he called Marcos. The conversation that followed was a powerful reminder that recovery wasn't a solitary journey. Marcos helped him see that momentary pain wasn't worth trading for a false sense of relief. "The temptation is strong, but you're stronger," Marcos said. And Ethan realized he was right. This experience was a milestone in Ethan's journey. He understood that temptations would always exist, but he had the power to choose how to respond to them. And more importantly, he realized he didn't have to face them alone. Discovering a purpose as Ethan grew stronger in his recovery, He began to feel a growing desire to help others going through similar struggles. He volunteered at rehabilitation centers, sharing his story and offering emotional support to those just starting their journey. It was in this context that he met Lucas, a 17-year-old who had just arrived at the center. Lucas was a mirror of Ethan's past, full of pain but also potential. Ethan saw himself in that young man and decided to do everything he could to help him find the path to recovery. The relationship between the two became a source of inspiration for Ethan. He realized that by helping Lucas, he was also healing himself. Every word of encouragement, every gesture of support, was a reminder of how far he had come and how his pain could be transformed into something positive. This discovery of purpose was a turning point in Ethan's life. He understood that his journey wasn't just about overcoming addiction, but about using his experience to make a difference in the world. Regaining trust, one of Ethan's biggest challenges, was regaining the trust of those he had hurt in the past. His family, though supportive, still carried scars from the choices he had made. Ethan knew words wouldn't be enough. He had to prove through actions that he had changed. He started small, keeping promises and being punctual for commitments. Slowly, his family began to see the genuine transformation taking place in him. His mother, in particular, became one of his biggest cheerleaders. "I always believed in you," she said. "But seeing you like this, so strong and determined, is the greatest reward I could ask for." Regaining trust was a slow and painful process, but also deeply rewarding. Ethan understood that forgiveness wasn't something to be demanded, but earned through consistent and sincere actions. The final victory today: Ethan is a transformed man. He not only overcame addiction, but also found a purpose that gives meaning to his life. He works as a counselor at a rehabilitation center, helping others find their path to recovery. His story is a powerful testament that no matter how far someone has fallen, there is always a chance to rise again. Ethan learned that true resilience isn't about never falling, but about always getting back up. He also understands that the journey of recovery never ends. Every day brings new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth. And Ethan is determined to keep growing, not just for himself, but for everyone he can inspire along the way. A legacy of hope. Ethan's story isn't just about resilience. It's about hope. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's light at the end of the tunnel. He now speaks to those struggling with addiction. You're not alone. I've been where you are, and I can tell you there's a way out. The journey is hard, but every step is worth it. Ethan has built a legacy of hope and resilience. His life is living proof that it's possible to rise from the ashes and turn pain into purpose. And by sharing his story, he continues to touch lives and inspire change. In the end, the greatest lesson Ethan learned is that true victory isn't about never falling, but about always getting back up. And it's this message that he carries with him, like a beacon for those still lost in the darkness.